Comptroller Scott Stringer, come on up.
Well, Bob, you've gotten me in a lot of trouble already. Well, I want to say I am very happy to be here this evening, and it's important that your city elected officials come here and talk directly and honestly with all of our constituents. We are one city, and I'm proud to be here today. You elected me comptroller 3 years ago, and I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I grew up in Washington Heights. I grew up back in the 70s when the murder rate was 2,000 a year. The 8 train was a rolling crime scene. And those of us who were in public school, somehow we all stayed together and worked together and made sure that we could make something of ourselves. And that has always been, for me, the aspiration of our city. I remember my mother saying, you know, look, Son of Sam is out there, be careful. And suddenly today, now, at the age of 56, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with being 56. I turned 50, you know, and it freaked me out a little bit, but I said I got to overcome it. And then I got my ARP card in the mail. And I immediately called my mother and said, I'm going to marry that girl. And today I have a 4.5-year-old boy, Maxwell, and I have a 3-year-old, Miles, and I love you very much. And they're amazing. And when I say this in church, people say, amen. Oh my God. So I got a lot of energy to do this job. But I tell you about my 2 little babies because I feel the way you do. A lot of the work we do, a lot of the reason why we're here tonight, it's not about us. It really is about the kids, right? It's about your kids, my kids, your grandkids. It's also about the kids we're never going to meet, right? It's about the kids who are going to inherit this city, and we've got to leave the city better than we found it. That's the great tradition of New York, no matter what community you live in, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, conservative or liberal. We have an obligation to make sure that our communities are safe and good for the kids. And yesterday, our office issued an investigative report that spoke to the conditions in homeless shelters for our children, for the children in homeless shelters. We looked at why the daycare centers within the shelters had so little resources for the kids. Sprinklers that didn't work, emergency doors that couldn't close from within, and we looked at the way kids were being serviced. And the truth is, there's no regulation and no one is watching. And we said to this administration that you've got to get busy. This is the 2nd investigation we issued in a year. You remember when we did the investigation and said, look, we've got so many people living in shelter, and they're living in conditions where rats and mice and mold and dangerous building conditions are in these shelters. We said, you got to do something. And because of the investigation in the Comptroller's office, we got the agencies moving. And now I want them to fix the daycare situation within these shelters. Now you agree with that, right? You want everybody to be safe. And my job, so you know, and then I'm going to stop and give you an opportunity so we can have questions. Let me just tell you a little bit about what the Comptroller does. So I'm the Chief Fiscal Officer, and I manage the $160 billion pension fund. So I protect the retirement security and the pensions of our cops, our firefighters, our teachers, and our city workers. It is a tremendous responsibility because their future depends on the return that we throw off of the pension fund. Now, I can do that all day long. But I also register 30,000 contracts. Now, there's limited power related to those contracts. I'll talk to you about it. But we review all of these contracts. The other thing we do is we actually work with City Hall and we market our bonds and our capital projects. So we go to the rating agencies. We speak about the city's 4-year financial plan. I make sure that when we look at the budget, we're compliant with a lot of the GAAP accounting principles. Now, why does that matter? We don't want to go back to the 70s when we were on the edge of bankruptcy, right? So I have to watch what's going on. And the other thing I do, and I think I do this very well, is I'm the auditor-in-chief. And we root out waste and fraud in city agencies. We monitor city agencies, we make recommendations, and we expose when things are not going well. And I hope you know, and I feel this strongly, that the work that we do is about making sure taxpayers get value from city government. And that is something I'm very proud of. So I'm here tonight to take a couple of questions. I know you have a big candidates night. We're not going to settle everything tonight, but I wanted to come here so you can see the face, the hands, the eyes, look at you, talk to you, and think about the issues that we face. Look, I will tell you, because I know homelessness is on everyone's mind, this is a crisis. 60,000 people are now in the shelter system. It could go as high as 70. 24,000 are children. That matters to me. I do believe everyone has a right to shelter, and nobody should sleep on the street. That is something that we can't have. So I'll be honest with you. We're going to have shelters. How can you not? What we really should have is permanent housing so we can move 30% of the people who are homeless have jobs. They don't make a lot of money. They struggle. But if we had a real housing plan that addressed the needs of the people in shelter, we could move tens of thousands of people into actual homes. And we have to begin to do this. The plan that de Blasio has today is to build affordable housing, but it's not affordable for the people who need it the most. So now people are in low-wage jobs with this economy, and they're in the homeless shelters with their kids. If we're going to have shelters, and that's not the first choice, right? We want permanent housing. The shelters must be safe. They have to be safe for the people who are in them, and they have to be safe for the community. That is reasonable. That is something that we should think about. And when we think about how we look at our communities, the one thing this city is not doing, and it must, we have to go back to something that has been part of the city government, going back to our community boards, precinct councils, neighborhood organizations. Remember when there was something called community-based planning? We actually worked with the community. We thought about plans together. We didn't always see eye to eye, the government and the Civic, but you worked it out. I don't want something over here, but the community has identified sites over here. Let's come and talk about it. Get around a table again. Let's solve the problem. We know the homeless crisis is here. We know people in Maspeth are going to have to deal with it the same way people in Park Slope, Harlem, and the Upper West Side. We're going to have to deal with it, but we can't deal with it top down, telling you what to do. We have got to create a conversation that respects your opinion and your views and your concerns, and that is legitimate in every part of the city. And I'm here tonight to tell you, anytime, any place you want to have a round table and talk about these issues, I'm coming.